Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show.
Cup of Joe Wrestling Show?
With Joey Harris. A podcast for the wrestling fan on the go. So take your favorite beverage of choice and join Joey as he takes a look at some of the biggest shows on the WWE Network.
From makeshift studios deep in the heart of stately Maine Manor, this is the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show. I am your host, Joey Harris. You can follow the show on Twitter at Cup of Joe Pod. You can email the show at cupofjoewrestlingshow@gmail.com. Folks, it is our second anniversary and the start of our third year doing this podcast. It continues to grow, and for that, I am humbled. And because it's another show, another anniversary, reached our second anniversary, I'd had another birthday. I turned 44. But it's like the archaeologist / philosopher Henry Jones Jr. said, it's not the years, it's the mileage. 44 doesn't bother me since when I turned 30, I had someone ask me how it was to be 52. Anyway, I got my booster shot last week. The only issue I had was a sore arm, so no issues other than that. So fully boosted, fully vaccinated. I've had COVID. At this point, I've done pretty much everything that I can do. But with it being going into our third year, our second anniversary, second birthday, today we look at one of my favorite shows of all time, SummerSlam 1991 from the WWF. SummerSlam 1991 took place on pay-per-view on August the 26th, 1991, from Madison Square Garden in New York City. There were 20,000 in attendance. And this is the days when it was pay-per-view and not a premium network showing or whatever it is that they call them now. This is back in the days when you had to call your local cable provider and ask for the event. We start out with a classic Vince McMahon SummerSlam intro.
Because it's time for SummerSlam! The lovely Miss Elizabeth and the Macho Man Randy Savage request the honor of your presence at their wedding, where it will truly be a match made in heaven! And then Nuptials turn to napalm in a match made in hell! Sergeant Slaughter, Colonel Mustafa, General Adnan, the Triangle of Terror square off against the red-hot combination of the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan. It's time for red-hot action. It's time for SummerSlam.
Gorilla Monsoon welcomes us to SummerSlam. He and Roddy Piper and Bobby Heenan are our announcers for the evening. They talk about the main events coming up. The crowd chants Roddy when he is talking. 6-man tag team match. The Dragon, the British Bulldog, and the Texas Tornado versus Power and Glory, Paul Roma and Hercules, and the Warlord with Slick. Roma and Dragon start. Roma with a scoop slam and a drop kick. Roma yelling at the crowd. Dragon arm drags him off of the turnbuckle into a wrist lock. Dragon with a thrust kick back into a wrist lock. Roma with some shots in the corner, but misses a corner charge, and Dragon hits a big arm drag. Then a big drop kick and snapmare to Roma. Hercules tagged in and gets hip tossed by Dragon. Dragon follows that up with an arm drag and Tornado tagged in. He works on Hercules' wrist. Hercules goes to push Tornado into the turnbuckle, but Tornado blocks it. He bashes Hercules' head in repeatedly. He then does corner punches to Hercules. He does a discus punch and goes back to the wrist lock. Warlord and Bulldog both tagged in because it's 1991 WWF pay-per-view, and it's the law that those two have to fight. 2 shoulder blocks and clotheslines by Bulldog knocks Warlord down. Bulldog hits a standing suplex on Warlord, gets a 2 count. Dragon tagged in and delivers a chop from the top rope. Warlord reverses a corner whip, but Dragon leapfrogs out of a corner charge and goes to monkey flip Warlord out, but he holds on. Roma comes in and hits a big shot to the Dragon's back. He then hits a clothesline. Dragon with a roll-up, and Hercules comes, and Dragon ducks a clothesline attempt, but Warlord hits his clothesline. Roma with a snap suplex and gets a 2 count. Roma with several delayed backbreakers. Hercules in with a delayed body press and slam on the Dragon. He runs the Dragon into the turnbuckle and tags Warlord in. He hits a big slam. Roma tagged in and comes in with a sit down on Dragon's back. Front face lock applied to Dragon, and Hercules tagged in. He Irish whips Dragon off, but he slips through the legs coming back and chops Hercules. Irish whip and reversal, and Hercules stun guns Dragon on the top rope. Dragon slammed down. Warlord goes up top to hit Dragon, but takes too long, and Dragon gets his legs up. Tornado tagged in. He cleans house. Warlord gets a sunset flip, but Tornado fighting it, and Bulldog tagged in. He goes off the top rope on Warlord, but gets caught. Tornado discus punches Warlord, and Bulldog falls on him for a 2 count. Roma tagged in. Bulldog hits a power slam for a 1 count. Dragon tagged in. He gets the crossbody on Roma to get the pin. Sean Mooney interviews Mr. Perfect and his new manager, the Coach, who is John Tolos. He says to be a champion, you have to be perfect, and Bret Hart is not perfect. WWF Intercontinental Championship match. Mr. Perfect with the Coach versus Bret Hart. Stu and Helen and Bruce Hart are shown in the crowd. Bret is cheered coming out. Perfect, it is even a wonder that he's even walking, as his injuries were severe to his back. They lock up briefly, taking their time. Hart with a shoulder block and a hip lock. Perfect rolls outside. Heenan and Piper doing some classic banter here, as Hart hits a crucifix for a 2 count. Hart with a side headlock. Perfect goes to push off, but Hart holds on to the hair and reapplies the headlock. Perfect with an Irish whip. Hart comes back with a crossbody. He gets a 2 count, but Perfect knocks Hart to the outside with the kick out. Hart sunset flips Perfect coming back in. That gets another 2 count. Back to the side headlock. Perfect pulls the hair, getting back up. Perfect with a shot. Perfect with an Irish whip, but Hart catches his leg. Hart with a stomp, but Perfect gets a corner whip and a big slam. Hart responds with a kick and a scoop slam. Perfect thrown outside. He goes to leave, and you can see that he is hurt. Hart goes out after him and throws him back in. They lock up in the corner. The referee separates them, and Perfect hits a cheap shot. Perfect with some kicks to Hart, and he lands outside. Perfect comes out after him and chops him. Hart pushed off the apron onto the barricade as he tried to get back in. Back in, Hart with some shots to the corner. Perfect reverses the corner whip, but Hart leaps over the corner charge with a roll-up for a 2 count. Perfect with some chops. Perfect with a corner whip, and Hart hits the corner hard. That gets a 2 count. Perfect with a snap neck breaker and a reverse sunset flip for a 2 count. Perfect with a shot and a drop kick. Hart back outside. Perfect out after him. They fight on top of one of the turnbuckles. They both fall off. Perfect lands on top for a 2 count. Perfect slings Hart across the ring by his hair. Perfect gets a sleeper on. Hart going down but fighting it. Hart with some elbows to the stomach and a crucifix. Perfect does a backdrop to get Hart off. That gets a 2 count. Perfect chops Hart in the corner. Hart sent into the turnbuckle chest first. Perfect gets the perfect plex, but doesn't lock the fingers, and Hart kicks out. Hart with 2 atomic drops. He swings Perfect by his hair, and Perfect gets crotched on the corner post. Hart with a suplex for a 2 count. Small package gets a 2 count. Side Russian leg sweep. Another 2 count. Perfect with a roll up for a 2 count, but Hart pushes him to the outside with the kick out. Perfect run into the ring post. Back in, Hart kicking Perfect's leg to set up for the sharpshooter. He goes for the sharpshooter. Coach climbs up on the apron and Hart slugs him off. Perfect hits the ropes and Hart gets a groin hit. Perfect with a kick to the groin as the crowd chant, "Let's go Bret." Perfect goes to drop a leg on Hart's groin, but Hart blocks it and turns it into a sharpshooter. Perfect gives up, and Hart is the new Intercontinental Champion. He rips the rest of the singlet off of Perfect. He raises the belt up to all 4 sides of the ring. Lord Alfred Hayes is standing by where the Harts are and tries to talk to Stu, but Bret arrives and hugs his family at that moment. Stu does manage to say that it's wonderful. Promo for the hot ticket discounted pay-per-view specials that they used to do. Mean Gene Okerlund interviews the Bushwhackers and Andre the Giant. They flash back to Earthquake clipping and injuring Andre on Superstars. Bushwhackers say when they finish with the natural disasters, they're going to throw them to Andre, and he says that will be his chance to get even. The natural disasters, Earthquake and Typhoon with Jimmy Hart versus the Bushwhackers, Luke and Butch with Andre the Giant. Bushwhackers get a great reaction coming out. Earthquake and Typhoon come outside and yell at Andre, but the Bushwhackers come over and give them an eye poke. Butch and Typhoon start. Butch bites Typhoon. Earthquake comes over, but Butch ducks and Earthquake hits Typhoon. All four men in and the Bushwhackers corner whip the natural disasters into each other. They use Earthquake as a battering ram on Typhoon. They double clothesline Earthquake. The natural disasters roll outside to regroup. Earthquake jumps Butch. He slams his back onto the turnbuckle. He goes to drop the elbow on Butch, but Butch moves. Earthquake keeps Butch from tagging. The referee stops Luke from coming in. Earthquake drops the elbow on Butch this time. Typhoon tagged in. He does the backbreaker on Butch. He runs Butch into the turnbuckle again. Earthquake tagged in and has Butch in a bear hug. Bobby Heenan announces he's heard that Hulk Hogan has arrived in his dressing room and he's going to confront Hogan about something. He says it's put up or shut up time for Hogan. Heenan then leaves. Earthquake with a backbreaker and Typhoon tagged in. Typhoon hits a back elbow. That gets a close 2 count, but Luke breaks it up. Typhoon holds Butch for Earthquake to hit, but Butch ducks and Typhoon gets hit. Luke gets tagged in and hits some clotheslines on Typhoon. A shoulder block gets Typhoon down. All four men in, and the Bushwhackers nail both natural disasters with battering rams. They run Typhoon into Earthquake, who goes outside by Andre, who threatens Earthquake with his crutch. Luke gets a 2 count on Typhoon. Earthquake does a backbreaker on Butch on the outside. Then he and Typhoon do a crushing sandwich on Luke. Earthquake tagged in and does the sit-down splash on Luke to win. They then go after Andre, who holds his brace up as a weapon. The Legion of Doom come out to protect Andre and get a huge MSG pop. Natural disasters surrounded on all sides, so they go and leave, and Andre hits them with his crutch as they leave. This is the last WWF appearance for Andre. Bobby Heenan is shown in Hulk Hogan's dressing room. He pounds on the door, and he is holding the big gold belt. This was huge at the time. The door is open, but of course you don't see Hogan. Heenan says on behalf of the real world's champion, Ric Flair, he would like to challenge Hogan for a match. The door is slammed on Heenan, who does some shtick before saying he wouldn't do that if Ric Flair were here, and to turn the camera off. They show Randy Savage talking on the Superstar line. Sean Mooney talks to Ted DiBiase and Sherry about the $1 Million Championship match coming up. They show the past abuse that DiBiase did to Virgil. He says all that will pale in comparison to the gutter he will leave Virgil in with a crying towel. $1 Million Championship match. Ted DiBiase with Sherry versus Virgil. Roddy Piper hugs and kisses Virgil on the head for luck as he comes down. Virgil attacks DiBiase early with shots to the corner. DiBiase to the outside after a Virgil clothesline. Virgil stops the count, then goes after DiBiase. He runs DiBiase into the steps. Back in, Virgil hits some fancy footwork and shots to DiBiase. DiBiase misses a clothesline, and Virgil hits an atomic drop. DiBiase back outside. Bobby Heenan returns to commentary. Virgil misses a dive over the top rope. A Virgil chant goes out. Virgil runs into the steps. Back in, DiBiase hits a clothesline. Fist drop by DiBiase. DiBiase stomping Virgil. He hits a double axe handle. Gets a 2 count. DiBiase with a chop in the corner. Virgil gets the $1 Million Dream on, so Sherry comes in and hits Virgil with her purse. The bell rings. Howard Finkel makes an announcement that the referee could disqualify DiBiase, but instead, Sherry is thrown out and the match continues. Both up. Virgil blocks being thrown into the turnbuckle and throws DiBiase in several times. Virgil with 10 corner punches. Double reversal into the corner whip, and Virgil is run into the referee who goes down. DiBiase with a suplex, then another one, and another one. He keeps yelling at Piper between each one, and a Roddy chant goes out. DiBiase hits the pile driver. DiBiase unties the top turnbuckle pad. Virgil blocks it and runs DiBiase into it. They both collapse. Virgil crawls over and pins DiBiase. The crowd loves it. New $1 Million Champion. Mean Gene is with the Mountie outside by a padded wagon to talk about the jailhouse match. They show Mountie's attack on the Big Boss Man on Superstars. Mountie insults the officers, telling them what he wants them to do to Boss Man after he loses. Sean Mooney talks to the Big Boss Man. He says Mountie's going to be the one going to jail. Jailhouse match. Loser spends the night in a New York City jail. The Big Boss Man versus the Mountie with Jimmy Hart. Boss Man hits a big right hand to Mountie to start, and Mountie is knocked down. He hits some more shots. Mountie up, back and forth. Boss Man with a back elbow. He hits a splash on Mountie, gets a 2 count, gets Mountie on the ropes, and does his leg drop on the ropes move. Goes for it again, but Mountie moves, so Boss Man slides outside. Back in, Mountie gets a thumb in the eye. Goes for a second rope move, but gets caught by Boss Man. Boss Man with a chin lock. Hart lures Boss Man to the outside. Mountie attacks from behind and pushes Boss Man into the ringside steps. Back in, Mountie hits a back elbow. Mountie with a fist drop. He hits a corner whip on Boss Man. That gets a 2 count. Boss Man reverses a corner whip, but misses an elbow. Mountie with a snapmare. 2 elbow drops. Another 2 count. Mountie with a drop kick to Boss Man. Another 2 count. Mountie drops Boss Man with an elbow on the apron. Back and forth. Mountie with a pile driver. Hart distracts the referee while Mountie goes to zap Boss Man with the shock stick. He misses, and Boss Man hits a shot. Mountie with an Irish whip. A couple of misses, and Boss Man hits a shot. Boss Man hits the Boss Man slam for a 2 count. Mountie trips Boss Man to get him down. Boss Man blocks a pile driver into a big slam and gets the pin. He waves the police down, and they handcuff Mountie and drag him to the wagon. They throw him into the wagon and leave. The camera follows the wagon out. Mean Gene is with Ted DiBiase and Sherry. They are irate at the result and the referee's actions. Sean Mooney interviews Bret Hart. He says Mr. Perfect found out what the excellence of execution is all about. Mean Gene interviews the Natural Disasters and Jimmy Hart. Hart is worried about the Mountie. The Natural Disasters say the Legion of Doom stuck their noses where they didn't belong. Sean Mooney talks to the Big Boss Man. He says that Mountie is a jailbird. He says he is the law and order of the WWF. Mean Gene checks in with Randy Savage, who is talking on the hotline again. We then go to our intermission. Gorilla Monsoon, Bobby Heenan, and Roddy Piper reset for the second half of the show. The wagon pulls up at the jail. Jacques Rougeau is so good in these scenes. Sean Mooney interviews Jimmy Hart and the Nasty Boys. The Nasty Boys say no more crying and whining. The heat is on, and they are going to win. The Mountie gets his picture taken. Mean Gene talks to the Legion of Doom. They talk about the upcoming no count out, no disqualification match. They say that's right up their alley. They also talk about the Natural Disasters. The Mountie is shown getting his fingers printed. Sean Mooney talks to Sergeant Slaughter, General Adnan, and Colonel Mustafa. They talk about the match made in hell and how they might have one more surprise in store. Mean Gene talks to newcomer Sid Justice. He says he stands alone. Mean Gene shows a video of the Triangle of Terror approaching Justice. He says they did approach him, but he didn't promise them or anyone else anything at all. WWF Tag Team Championship match. No disqualification, no countout. The Nasty Boys, Jerry Sags and Brian Knobbs with Jimmy Hart versus the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal. LOD gets a big pop coming out, but the announcers put over the Nasty Boys as being fighting champions. LOD attacking immediately. It goes outside. Animal throws Knobbs in the ring. Hawk and Sags fighting on the outside. Animal with a squat powerbomb on Knobbs, but Sags breaks up the pin. Hawk and Sags mess up an Irish whip spot. Sags then catches Hawk's foot, so Hawk does an enziguri to get out of it. An LOD chant goes out. Sags springs something in Hawk's eyes, but the announcers are bickering so they don't see it. It goes outside, and Sags slams a tray of drinks on Hawk. Knobbs tagged in and double clothesline to Hawk. LOD chant goes out again. Hawk in the Nasty Boys corner getting choked with the tag ropes. Sags runs Hawk into the ring steps, beating Hawk down in the corner again. Knobbs with a corner charge on Hawk. Sags tagged in and hits an elbow drop from the top to Hawk. That gets a 2 count, as Animal breaks up the count. Knobbs goes for a shot, but Hawk gets his legs up. Animal tagged in and cleaning house. He gets a power slam on Knobs, but Sags makes the save. All four in. Hawk thrown out. Hart throws the motorcycle helmet to Sags to hit Animal while Knobs holds him. Animal ducks, so Sags hits his back instead. Gets a 2 count, but Animal kicks out. Hawk comes around and gets the helmet from Hart and nails Knobs with it. They then nail Sags with the helmet and go for the Doomsday device. He hits it and Animal pins Sags, new tag team champions. The Mountie is shown getting thrown into a cell. A Survivor Series ad. IRS versus Greg Valentine. Valentine with a side headlock and a shoulder block. Pro Wrestling Spotlight guy John Arezzi is shown going back to his seat. Another shoulder block by Valentine. Valentine with a hip toss and a clothesline. IRS rolls outside. Back in, he gets a knee to Valentine's stomach. Valentine gets a sunset flip for a 2 count. He gets a scoop slam and IRS rolls out again. Back in, IRS kicking Valentine. IRS with an abdominal stretch, holding on to the ropes. He denies it to the referee. He finally gets caught as Valentine hip tosses IRS, misses a knee drop, and IRS hits a clothesline. He drops an elbow and gets a 2 count. He gets a headlock. Backbreaker to Valentine. He goes up top, but gets caught. Valentine slams him off. Valentine with chops and slaps. IRS reverses the corner whip, but misses the charge coming in. Valentine setting up for the figure 4. He gets it on. IRS gets to the ropes, misses an elbow drop. Valentine goes for it again, and IRS gets the win with a roll-up. Another hot ticket ad. Mean Gene interviews Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. Hogan says they have to take out Sergeant Slaughter and company. Warrior says the recent snake bite by Jake Roberts' Cobra isn't enough to take him out, and he and Hulk Hogan will be successful. Sid Justice is introduced as the special guest referee. The match made in hell. Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior versus Sergeant Slaughter, General Adnan, and Colonel Mustafa. A USA chant goes out as Slaughter and company come out. The Warrior gets a big ovation coming out. Hogan gets an even bigger ovation. Another USA chant goes out. Gorilla Monsoon says Hulk Hogan is the greatest WWF champion in history, bar none. That might or might not be debatable up to that point, but both Warrior and Slaughter are right there, Gorilla. Just chill, dude. Slaughter has his belt off to hit Hogan, but Justice rips it out of his hands and throws it away. Slaughter with big shots to Hogan in the corner. Hogan reverses a corner whip, but Slaughter doesn't go over the ring post to the floor like he usually does. Slaughter ping-ponging back and forth in the face's corner, getting hit by both Hogan and Warrior. Warrior tagged in, and he and Hogan do a double clothesline on Slaughter. Warrior hits an atomic drop, and Hogan tagged back in. Double big boot. Slaughter run into the ring post by Hogan. Gets a 2 count as Mustafa comes in to break it up. Hogan with a running elbow. Warrior tagged back in and hits a running shot to the stomach of Slaughter. He runs Slaughter into Hogan's boot. Hogan tagged back in. Hogan with a double axe handle for a count that Adnan and Mustafa break up. Hogan with a corner whip and clothesline. Hogan with some corner punches and a choke. Justice drags him off and yells at him to break it. He goes back, and Justice breaks it up again. Slaughter with an eye poke. He runs Hogan into Mustafa's boot. Slaughter with shots to Hogan and Warrior. Adnan tagged in. He rakes Hogan's back. A Hogan chant goes out. Hogan in the heels corner and they all take their shots. Mustafa tagged in. He hits a gut-wrench suplex on Hogan. Mustafa with the camel clutch on the man he lost the WWF title to in 1984 in the building that he lost it in. There's some trivia for you. Warrior kicks Mustafa to break it up, and Slaughter tagged in. He does a backbreaker on Hogan for a 2 count. Slaughter with some shots and chokes in the corner, but Justice breaks it up. Hogan corner whipped into Justice, and they have words as Slaughter hits a double axe handle to Hogan's back. Adnan tagged in, and he hits Hogan's back with several double axe handles. Adnan with a back rake and an eye gouge. Adnan biting Hogan, and Slaughter tagged in. Slaughter goes up top, but Warrior pushes him off. Warrior tagged in. He unloads on Slaughter. 4 clotheslines to Slaughter. Warrior runs into Sid Justice. Hogan comes in to plead Warrior's case as Warrior and Justice are staring at each other. Slaughter runs Warrior into Mustafa's boot. Adnan tagged in, Slaughter diverting Justice's attention while Adnan rakes Warrior's back. Mustafa tagged in. He tries a suplex, but Warrior blocks. Warrior reverses the suplex. Slaughter tagged in and lures Hogan in. Justice takes Hogan out while Slaughter and company stomp and choke Warrior. Slaughter with a clothesline to Warrior. Warrior ducks a clothesline, hits one of his own, and starts humping air for some reason. Very strange. He's going to make me have to put the explicit tag on this episode. He then collapses. A double count going. Slaughter up. Warrior makes the tag to Hogan. The U point. Punches. Big boot. Punches to Adnan and Mustafa. Warrior takes them out. Slaughter run into the corner post. Warrior gets a chair and chases Mustafa and Adnan back to the locker room and then promptly quits or gets fired depending on who you believe. Hogan throws some powder on Slaughter. Leg drop and pin. Hogan must pose. Hogan motioning to someone in the back. Sid Justice comes back to the ring. Hogan rips his shirt off and they pose together. They take a final look at the Mountie. This is the famous "You wanna fight me, buddy" scene. Flashback to the Macho Man proposing to Elizabeth. Elizabeth and Macho Man tribute video. Not the original music on the network. The Together Forever video is on the WWE's YouTube page, however, if you would like to give that a look. Randy Savage comes out and gets a great ovation. Bobby Heenan is hilarious here. 2021 Warrior Award recipient Rich Herring is the official. Elizabeth comes out looking lovely. Agents and security line the aisle so she isn't touched. They play it absolutely straight, and there are no shenanigans at all. The crowd gives them a big ovation as it ends. They wave to the crowd as they leave. Streamers and confetti falling. They say "I love you" as they sign off from Madison Square Garden. Final thoughts. This is a classic show. Warrior was gone for a while after this, so they pivot Roberts from Warrior to Savage with the Cobra in the box at the wedding reception. And Justice is the new big face of the company. Wrestling world is changing as Flair is about to come in. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at @TheJoeyHarris. If you like the show, please leave a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. I would really appreciate it. Thank you for joining me this week. This is Joey saying so long from stately Maine Manor.
The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show is a production of Baby Kangaroo Media.